Good morning, everyone. Can everybody hear me back to front? You good? Okay. Well, let's remember to silence our cell phones as we welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Solano Valley. My name is Fletcher Walsh, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. So with open hearts and open minds, we embrace the beauty and spirit of diversity and inclusivity, not bound to by a specific creed written by one to be followed by all. Through covenant with one another, we affirm, practice, and promote 8 principles as our core values, with love and justice a common thread throughout. At the end of the day, it's our actions guided by those principles that help define who we are, and with equal measure, our connection to the world around us. For those of you who are visiting with us today, you can find our 8 principles on the back of the order of service. It's our tradition to welcome first and second time visitors. Those of you who haven't been here for a while, to stand if you're comfortable in doing so, introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. Can we start on this side, back to front? Anybody? Please.
I'm Guy McGee. I haven't been here in a good while, but I'm a UU from actually the Hickory Church from a long time ago.
Welcome.
Yeah. Anybody on this side? Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. If you have an interest in learning more about who we are, please fill out these orange cards located in the back of the pews, and there's also some on the table in the foyer. You can place it in the collection plate or, again, out on the table up front. We also have volunteers from the membership committee, and they're generally identified with orange name tags. Andy, if you're here, thank you. Please feel free to see Andy directly after the service. We have a few announcements. Once again, let's mark our calendars for the auction coming up on November 3rd through the 9th. I think everybody is fully aware of what needs to be done for that event. If you're not, my wife will be in the lobby. I see you, Kathy, yeah, in the lobby. Risa, yeah, and she will be able to answer any questions that you might have. How's everybody doing with servant keeper? Good? Everybody good? Okay, good. If you want to know anything about it, or if there's any concerns whatsoever, please feel free to contact Rochelle or Debbie. They can assist you. Let's keep in mind that next week Michael's sermon will be on the official kickoff for a series of events related to climate concerns and justice. Be on the lookout for more congregational activities led by our social team over the next few months, culminating in a climate justice revival, spring of 2025. And we are excited because we're among 350 participating, UUs in supporting this event. Also, our thoughts and prayers go out to Joy Levine in hopes that she will receive the care that she needs at Arbor Terrace. The family has requested that there be no visitation for 3 weeks. However, cards and phone calls are welcome. We end this part of the service with respect that the land that we are on today was and remains the ancestral home of the Cherokee and of other indigenous people, who through stewardship, understanding, and conservation survived and still thrive in this land. We acknowledge their enduring connection to their homeland. Let's begin our service.
Good morning, my name is Tracey Gruver. Listen to these words from Matthew as we enter this service today. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. The Bible tells us here that we must welcome all the strangers.
Before you rise for the first hymn, let me just announce that Kathy brought the lovely flowers, but some of them came from Mary Soyanova's garden, so she's here with us, even though somehow she's in Tennessee, too. I don't quite get that, but thank you, Kathy. Number 131, Love Will Guide Us. If you're able, please stand and join us in singing. Responsive reading today is number 651 in the back of the gray hymnals. The body is humankind. I'll read the regular print and you'll please follow along with the italics. The Body is Humankind by Norman Cousins. I am a single cell in a body of 4 billion cells. The body is humankind. I am a single cell. My needs are individual, but they are not unique.
I am interlocked with other human beings in the consequences of our actions, thoughts, and feelings.
I will work for human unity and human peace, for a moral order in harmony with the order of the universe.
Together we share the quest for a society of the whole equal to our needs.
A society in which we need not live beneath our moral capacity, and in which justice has a life of its own.
We are single cells in a body of 4 billion cells. The body is humankind.
Thank you. And now we have the joy of our first choir anthem today, one of my favorites, Somos el Balto.
Somos el mar.
was built by many hands. The sea we are sailing on touches me.
Somos el barco, somos el mar, navega en ti, tú navegas en mí. We are the boat, we are the sea, I sail in you. You sail in me.
The voyage has been long and hard, and yet we're sailing still, with a song to help us pull together, if we only will.
Somos el barco, somos el mar, yo navego en ti, tú navegas en mí. We are the boat, we are the sea, I sail in you, you sail in me.
So with our hopes we raise the sails to face the winds once more, and with our hearts we chart the waters never sailed before.
Somos el barco, somos el mar, yo navego en ti, tú navegas en mí. We are the boat, we are the sea, I sail in you, you sail in me. Somos el barco, somos el mar, yo navego en ti, tú navegas en mí. We are the boat, we are the sea, I sail in you, you sail in me.
It's that moment in our service where we get to come up and either light a candle or, if you will, put a stone in the water. And please silently share your thoughts about your joys or concerns, and maybe we'll follow up with you in the lobby when we're done. Andy, please lead us. I'd like this candle for those of you who chose not to come up. Thank you. We keep you in our thoughts and prayers. Now that we have this quiet moment together, I'm going to read a short little meditation, and then we'll have 2 minutes of silence. This is by W.E.B. Du Bois. The prayer of our souls is a petition for persistence, not for the one good deed or single thought, but deed upon deed and thought upon thought, until day calling unto day shall make life worth living. And now, a moment of silence. May it be so. Michael likes to say, please donate to make it go on forever. Better words than that, but we now take this morning's offering, and during the offering, our choir will once again grace us with their second anthem. Thank you, choir. Linda was fabulous. Joke done. And thank all of you for your offerings. Lee Redding, who you know is on our Sunday Service Associates, called me one day and said, Jim, I got to be out of town when I'm supposed to be the facilitator for one of our services. Could you fill in for me? I said, why me? And he said, it's about Pisgah Legal, our immigration service. And I jumped right up and said, hell yes, let's do it. As some of you know, I've volunteered with Pisgah Legal now for 12 years, in part because I help with Affordable Care Act navigation in the fall and tax prep for low-income folks in the winter and spring. So I'm just now entering my busy season with Pisgah. And I'm proud to introduce these two folks today. I must confess, the hardest part of the certification test to become Affordable Care Act Navigator, which is an online test we must pass at 80%, is about immigration. Because we who volunteer to help people sign up for Affordable Care Act need to know about immigration. But I passed the test. So just let you know. Jacob Oates is an immigration attorney and director of our Justice for All Peoples program at Pisgah Legal Services. They do fabulous work, let me tell you. We are increasingly hiring both staff and volunteers who have Spanish speaking, and we do help, as you know, immigrants from all over the world. So thank you especially for that service. He's lived here in Western North Carolina for 20 years and been with Pisgah Legal for 7 years. And I'm really anxious to hear more about how he helps a lot of the clients that I see. Tracey Gruver is our Leadership and Legacy Giving Officer at Pisgah Legal. She's been working with us just since January, so I just got to meet her very recently. But prior to her work here in the nonprofit sector, Tracey was a high school English teacher for 10 years. And those of us that write poetry always love English teachers. So thank you. So Tracey, lead us off.
Sorry. Good morning. My name is Tracey Gruver, and I do work for Pisgah Legal Services. And yes, I was a high school English teacher, but I promise I won't correct your grammar if you come up to talk to me after the service. I'm not that kind of English teacher. I might silently, but I won't do it to you. So I work in the nonprofit world, and I've been doing this nonprofit work for about 5 years. I was with another organization previously. I feel so strongly about what Pisgah Legal does. I feel really honored to be even allowed to work for this organization because they're wonderful. So this is a nonprofit that actually provides free civil legal assistance to low-income folks here in Western North Carolina. A lot of people don't realize that, if you commit a crime, you are entitled to free legal representation if you can't afford to pay for your own, right? But when you have a civil issue, you are not entitled to that. We don't have that as a law in our country. So if you, say, are being faced with an eviction or foreclosure, or maybe you are fleeing a domestic violence situation and you need a protective order, you don't get free legal representation for that. And I was shocked to learn that when a person goes into court to get a protective order, so they're fleeing an abuser, all they want is just something that says that person can't come close to them. If they go in without legal representation, the chances of them getting that protective order are only about 32%. If they have legal representation, that actually increases to over 80% success rate. So that's a huge difference, and you can imagine that someone who's going through something like that is going to be really stressed out. They don't know how to work the system. They don't understand the language in the courtroom, and so that's why we feel it's really important for people to be able to get that assistance if they need it, if they can't afford to pay an attorney. And I don't know if you all have looked at attorney fees lately, but they're pretty high. It costs a lot of money just to retain an attorney, so there are a lot of folks who can't afford that. So Pisgah Legal's mission is to pursue justice through legal assistance and advocacy, helping low-income people in Western North Carolina to meet their basic needs and improve their lives. At our core, we are an anti-poverty organization. We believe that the services we provide to folks are actually helping them to get a step up, a step closer out of poverty. Unfortunately, a lot of the legal system in our country is kind of designed to penalize people who don't have a lot of money. And so we can talk more about that anytime you like. If you want to go to coffee, go to lunch, I'll explain all those details to you, but I don't have time today. But I do want to tell you a little bit about what we do before you hear from Jacob. So we serve 18 counties, so a big range in Western North Carolina. We have 15 different programs. I didn't know that when I started at Pisgah Legal. I knew they did housing assistance, I knew they did domestic violence, I knew they did immigration, but they have lots and lots of other things that they do. And we help low-income people. Last year, the average household income for one of our clients was about $19,000. So I want you to think about that for a second. The whole household income, $19,000. That is not a lot of money. I do not know how people live in this area on $19,000 a year. So we are really helping some very, very vulnerable folks in our community. We have 4 focus areas for our programs. So we have those 15 programs, but they all fit into 4 buckets. And those are housing, safety, healthcare, and income security. So what Jim was talking about, the work that he does is in that healthcare bucket, but also a little bit income, right? Because he's helping people get access to affordable healthcare so they are not spending all of their income on that healthcare, right? A lot of our programs go together and almost overlap in some of those buckets. And then the last thing two more things. One thing I wanted to say is that we do a lot of advocacy as an organization. So for years before I was ever employed at Pisgah Legal, our staff were advocating for Medicaid expansion and many other things, but that was a big one. We had lots of folks who were advocating for that. Our former director, Jim Barrett, he spent a lot of time with a lot of state and local leaders talking about Medicaid expansion and how important it was that we offer this health care to our most vulnerable folks. And that finally did happen. Yes, we're very excited. Is it perfect? No. Is anything in our government perfect? No. But we're really happy that it happened. We're happy that it's moving forward, and that, that's another thing that people like Jim are doing as volunteers, is helping people sign up for Medicaid now that they are eligible. Because there's a lot of folks who, A, don't even know that they're eligible now, B, have no idea how to navigate the system to get signed up, and C, some people even get denied even though they should be accepted into the program. And so volunteers like Jim will help them to navigate that system and be successful. So the last thing I wanted to tell you is just how you can support this organization if you are interested in doing so. We need volunteers. We need more Jims. Jim is amazing, but he can't do it all. So we need people to help with tax returns. We need people to help with enrolling people in healthcare. We also need people to screen calls. We have a lot of folks who that's what they do. They talk on the phone all day to the people who are calling us, because we get thousands of calls. And so you could help us screen those phone calls. We have admin volunteer opportunities, people who write thank you notes to donors, who do thank you calls, things like that. And then we also have a lot of events. And Jacob's gonna tell you a little bit about the one that we have coming up next month. But we can always use volunteers at events. We raise a whole lot of money every year to do the work that we do. And we couldn't do that without volunteers, because we do have a great team of fundraisers, but we need help. So if that's something that you would be interested in, if you are an event planner, if that is your thing, I would love to talk to you. that is something we always need help with. So just let us know. Jacob and I will be outside after the service, so feel free to stop by, ask questions, talk to us, and we have lots of information available to you outside. But I want you to hear from Jacob about his work in the immigration program. So come on up. There's a little difference in our heights, yes.
The yin and the yang.
Thanks for having us today. I'm Jacob Oates. I'm the director of the small immigration program at Pisgah Legal Services. I'm an immigration attorney myself, and we only have 6 people on our team, 3 attorneys and 3 support staff. And we're constantly trying to figure out how to prioritize, how to help people in the best possible way. I'll tell you a little bit about the kinds of things that we do, the types of cases we take, the kinds of immigrants that we seek to help, and what situations that they're in. But first I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I lived here in Madison County for about 20 years. Other than when I went to law school down in Chapel Hill for a couple of years, and then before moving back here, I worked at the farm worker unit at Legal Aid in North Carolina in Raleigh. And then I came up here and I've been working at Pisgah Legal Services as an immigration attorney for 7 years now. And my children have both gone through the coming of age program at UU of Asheville. My wife and my son are actually over there right now. And I actually did that myself up in Meriden, Connecticut back in the early 90s. So long time dabbling in the UU. So it's fun to be here, chat with y'all a little bit today. As Tracey mentioned, we do civil legal services, right? And so in the immigration context, really what that means is primarily we're trying to get people, if we can, status, to be able to remain here permanently, right? And at the core, we're trying to get people to be able to meet their basic needs if they can get status and remain here permanently. Of course, that's going to help their ability to live just like the rest of us in all other parts of their lives, right? Some people we can get work authorization for, but not permanent status, or work authorization on their way towards permanent status. That's another thing we do a lot of. And we also do some removal work, which is, fighting affirmatively against people who are actively trying to make sure that they don't get removed from the United States. And, just like you can get a public defender because a crime, the penalty takes away your liberty, being removed from this country doesn't qualify as a penalty that's taking away your liberty, even though in a lot of ways it's, potentially sending people back in the worst case scenario to death or persecution in their home country, but they don't have a government funded attorney either. We only do a small amount of removal work. It's the courts down in Charlotte, there's courts around the country. We only have so much capacity. Most of what we do are affirmative applications for folks, but primarily also in the humanitarian context. There's a handful of types of cases that we generally help people with. But before I explain exactly that, this isn't a political speech, and I know immigration is never thought of as political in any way. But I do think, it's important to, acknowledge, like Fletcher said right at the beginning, here we are on the land of the Cherokee, right? 200 years ago, we were still moving west, the immigrants, right, taking over the land. 100 years ago, if you passed a health screening, come on in. We're really functioning today under laws that have only been in place for 50 years and slight adaptations 30 and 25 years ago. But the system is really, it's always changing, but it's also currently, the term people often use is broken, but it's certainly not set up to meet the things that people need who are either trying to come here or trying to fix their status if they've already been here, and to make America be able to have these folks just live, seek the opportunities that they're trying to do and become members of society like the rest of us here. You know, undocumented folks, non-citizens, they can't vote. They can't get Social Security. They pay their taxes. In most cases, they can't get public benefits, although we get work authorization for them and status. Jim might be able to help them. As you mentioned, it's really complicated. Some people are eligible for certain things like Obamacare under certain situations if we help them out. Immigrants are much less frequently folks to commit crimes in this country. It's just a statistical truth. And then there's the misnomer that we work in my job in more than anything else, which is the line, right? Get in line. There's no line, right? For most people, the vast, vast majority, it's just a falsehood that somebody could get in line. Yes, there are people who might be able to benefit from a family member in the United States. If they have a family member in the United States, the line might be 20, 30 years, but there might be a line. You know, somebody who's got some connections or some really high skills might be able to get in line to come to the United States under a work visa. But for the vast majority of folks who want to come to the United States, work, seek opportunities, there's no line. So this humanitarian-based relief that we prioritize for folks who are already here, you know, we help people living in Western North Carolina, it's limited, right? The vast majority of people who call us and they want immigration consult, see if they can, you know, fix their status, get work authorization. The answer, unfortunately, is sorry, there's nothing that can be done. But in some cases there are. And oftentimes it is really the most vulnerable, right? All of Pisgah's clients are facing all these barriers, but undocumented folks are facing a whole nother level because they generally can't get a driver's license and can't get a job on an even playing field with other folks because they don't have a social security number. So where we can, we help people. The types of cases we generally handle, U visas are for victims of crime who've cooperated with law enforcement to be able to get there. To get the suspect that has harmed them, either convicted or at least investigated. U visas are also extremely backlogged. It takes about 20 years to get a U visa, but in the interim you can get a work permit. Pisgah Legal Services actually had to sue the federal government on behalf of almost 200 of our clients last year because even those interim work permits for the folks who were victims of crime cooperated with law enforcement, raised their hands to try to, you know, apply for that visa, so waiting up to 5 years just for that interim work permit to get a social security number, to be able to simply get a job and get a driver's license. So we were successful in being able to get almost 200 folks their work authorization. One of my colleagues was able to get a client who's been here well over 10 years, you know, living, working here, sending money back home, was a victim of an assault several years back, applied for the visa about 6 or 7 years ago. Finally, just this week, his wife, who he hasn't seen in over 12 years, just flew into the United States and they got to reunify. Unfortunately, they're still working on getting their kids here, passport issues. He's a teenager, so he hasn't seen in the same amount of time. But that's just like one little thing that litigation was able to get for some folks. So we do a lot of U visas, unfortunately. There's a lot of victims of crime. We also handle something called a T visa, which are trafficking visas. We help people who have been victims of human trafficking, whether the sexual context or the labor context. We help people who have been in that situation if we can as well. People say trafficking happens right, in plain sight, and it really is. It's one of those things, even for us who are supposed to be experts on this, it's easy to miss because people don't realize when they're lacking the ability to make decisions about their own lives. We also handle petitions for people who have been abused or been treated with cruelty by their U.S. citizen spouse who hasn't petitioned for them. One of the major ways that people can come to the United States legally is through family-based petitions, but sometimes there's this power dynamic. People get married to a U.S. citizen, for example, and that U.S. citizen then holds that over their spouse and things go south. So we can help people in that kind of situation. We can also help minors in certain situations. If they've been neglected, abused, abandoned by one of their parents. Actually, we handle a lot of folks, who maybe one of their parents came to the United States a long time ago, or both of their parents are in their home country, maybe they've been them with a grandparent, and they come to the United States as kids, maybe young teenagers. And we actually have to get involved with the state court and get a custody order in place to specifically show that they've been mistreated by one or both of their parents and some other specifics in there. And then we can get those minors status. Those take about 5 years, but recently, past couple of years, we've been able to get them interim work permits during that time too. And as I mentioned, even for a kid, a work permit's a good thing. It's not a driver's license. They're too young, not maybe going to be working, although some of these kids start getting a little older, but maybe they might be eligible for health insurance. So getting them those interim work permits while they're waiting is also really excellent. And we also help sometimes, and only sometimes, with what's called asylum. Folks probably hear about asylum, the border, hearing about it all the time. It's people who are fleeing persecution in their own country. Now, a lot of people cross the border and claim asylum, and the fact of the matter is they're probably never going to be approved for asylum, right? But does that mean they're crossing the border and lying about what happens? No. It just means the laws are extremely strict, right? And so it's a really complex scenario where people cross the border, they claim they need some help, and it's going to be a multi-year process until somebody in the immigration system is able to determine whether they're eligible to remain here and merit the protection of the United States government or not. Historically, asylum cases are extremely, extremely difficult to win. And so unfortunately, we, with our limited resources, can't generally help with asylum cases except in narrow circumstances. The Charlotte Immigration Court, which I mentioned, which we do handle various things in, if you were to argue your asylum case there, you'd have a over 9% chance of losing your case. And so it's just a matter of the chances of helping somebody that's going to be successful. We can't put our resources there. A couple of years ago, we did have a big project where, most of our clients, over time, just historically, the way trends are, over 80% of our clients are from Latin America, Spanish speaking. I speak Spanish, my whole team speaks Spanish, we kind of need to. But a couple of years ago, we had a small number, a few dozen families come from Afghanistan during the collapse of that country. All over the country, groups of Afghans were coming, evacuated from Afghanistan with no stable status, even though they were in the country lawfully, they didn't have a permanent status, and so we wound up helping a lot of these folks to seek asylum. We had volunteer attorneys, trained some folks in the area, even from around the country, got a lot of other volunteers, Jane, who I've known for a couple of years. helping these folks with all kinds of other needs, and so we did handle those kinds of asylum cases. And so we try to be flexible to meet the needs of the immigrants in the community who are the most vulnerable and the most needy at a given time. So, you know, even with the 3 attorneys and the 18 counties where we serve, you know, we're constantly like, okay, the juvenile cases, we're often like, okay, focus on the 17-year-olds because they're going to age out of this remedy. It's like a constant triage, you know, the U visa victims. So how do we decide between which U visa victim? We may have to narrow it. Only domestic violence or sexual assault, says somebody who was a victim of some other type of serious assault or something. It's like these painstaking decisions we have to make, but the fact of the matter is we can't help everybody. But we do try to constantly prioritize so that we can help as many people as we can to get that work authorization, to be able to remain here in the United States without fear, to be able to ultimately get permanent status. You know, a few years ago, you know, people say, why do I do this? How do I do this? You know, dealing with these traumatic stories all the time. And it's tough. You know, self-care is like something I'm not all that good at, you know, but whatever that is, it's different for everybody. But you know, we have to take care of ourselves. We can't help anybody else, right? But why do I do it? Because the outcomes, if we do get them, are so profound for these folks, right? You know, a few years back during the Trump administration, I met a girl. She was 16. She'd been fleeing domestic violence from her partner in Honduras. She came in with her infant son. That he was the father, and we'll just call her Maria. And you know, she came to Pisgah Legal Services with her aunt, who she reunited with. That's how she wound up here. That's how people often wind up here, is because they have family. And so we were able to get her first signed up for special immigrant juvenile status, but the administration was like really strict at that time. And so then we wound up having to apply for asylum when we were successful in getting her asylum into the United States. And last year I was able to give her and her son both their green cards. And so that's why we do it, right? Anyway, I could talk about this stuff all day, but I'll be out there to talk after the service to answer your questions, chat about this kind of work. I did want to mention before I wrap up here that we are, as Tracey mentioned, having our biggest event of the year. We rotate what topics it is, the Justice Forum. It's always in October. We have it focusing on immigration this year. And Maria Elena Hincapié, who is a national leader in policy, has been for over 25 years, worked with the Biden administration when they were invoking the Obama administration during DACA, still working with some of the Biden administration folks. Is going to be speaking at the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium, and we'd love for folks to come listen to her talk about her work and her hopes for this country during this interesting time for this time. Thanks for having me, folks.
Thank you, Jacob, for all the work you do. It's so vital. Just a quick notice. This year, for the first time, DACA people are eligible for ACA. So we're going to be helping a lot of folks this year. So thank you. We're going to have our closing hymn, number 168, One More Step. And then Tracey will share some closing words at the end of the service. So one more step, please. 168. Please stand if you're able and join us.
One more step, we will take one more step till there is peace for us and everyone. We'll take one more step, one more word. We will say one more word till every word is heard by song is sung by everyone who sing one more song.
As Jacob said, we do have an event coming up in October. It's October 10th, and we'll give you information as you're leaving today. But I hope that you'll come and join us to hear Mary Elena and Copier talk about what could be done differently in our country. What could we do better to help others? We know that there's a lot of words in the Bible about how we are supposed to welcome people. In Ephesians, we hear, "You are no longer foreigners and strangers, but fellow citizens with God's people and also members of His household." So what can you do today to be fellow citizens with others who may not look like you? How will you welcome a stranger in your life?